All right, we have reached 10 o'clock. So here we go, folks. Thank you so much for showing up. We're excited to be talking with you today about the opportunity that our small businesses in Lake County have with this grant. And we're going to share with you information about the eligibility requirements. We're going to take a quick look at the website. If you've not been there yet, I'll just quickly walk you through how the website is working. We've had feedback from quite a few businesses already that said, you know what, it's pretty straightforward and easy.
Mitch, I think you froze there. You might need.
Yep, I got it. Hang on a minute. I've got to mute everybody again. So please make sure your microphones are muted. We do have quite a few people on the call with us, and the background noise sometimes gets in the way. So please make sure. And what I'd like to do is, so we're going to spend a little time going over just the facts of this grant, and we're going to spend most of the time though on Q&A, okay? And what I'd like to ask is that everybody keep their microphone muted and you post your questions in the chat box, and we'll go through them one at a time and answer them as they come up. Kevin and I'll just kind of go back and forth and do our best to answer them as you post them. So my name is Mitch Bienvenu. I am the director of the Small Business Development Center at College of Lake County, and I've been involved in a task force that was put together to help create this grant program. And Kevin Considine also is involved in that whole process, and I'll let Kevin introduce himself. Kevin, take a moment if you would.
Sure. Good morning, all. I'm Kevin Considine. I'm the president of Lake County Partners. Lake County Partners is the nonprofit economic development corporation for Lake County. Our mission is to help businesses fuel job growth. And Mitch and I, our two organizations, have been tasked by Lake County to help put together this small business recovery grant program.
Very good. Thank you.
Mitch, back to you.
Yep. And so what I'm going to do now, folks, is I'm going to screen share. And we're going to take a look at, I want to make sure you all can see this. Can everybody see the PowerPoint slide? Kevin, can you confirm?
Yes.
Okay,
we can see it.
All right, wonderful. So Lake County Forward, you'll see that logo in the middle of the screen at the bottom there, is kind of the whole group of people from the county, from Lake County Partners, the Small Business Development Center, and many others who are tasked with helping the county to figure out the best way to use the CARES Act money that has come our way. And so this grant program is a component of that. What I want to do is I want to talk about kind of a high-level overview of the eligibility requirements for this. If you've been on the grant website, you probably have seen this, but just to set the foundation, you know, we may have some people in this meeting with us who've not spent a lot of time there yet. So I'm quickly going to review the high-level eligibility requirements. Then we'll go take a look at the grant website itself, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So as you can see, one of the first things it says is program purpose: reopening, recovery, and continued operation for businesses negatively impacted by COVID-19. No big surprise there. The main focus of the grant proceeds are intended to be used to make sure businesses can stay open. So occupancy costs like rent and lease and other operating needs, which we can talk about as we move forward. The businesses need to be located in Lake County. They need to be for-profit at this point, only for-profit incorporated businesses that have been in business since February 15 or before, earning less.
Mitch, you froze again, so I think we're missing your audio there.
Hang on. Can you see it now? Sorry about that. My internet just kicked out on me and it kicked me out altogether. So can you hear me again? Okay. Sorry about that. Technology. We get these hiccups every now and then. Okay, I'm sharing my screen again. Please somebody tell me that you can see the screen. Can somebody-
Yeah. So Mitch, you still are cutting, your audio is still coming in and out.
Hey, Kevin.
So this formula is your business, your monthly business rent or mortgage payment, the business portion, times 4.5. So our goal here was, let's be able to help you open back up, cover your occupancy costs. Now you can use those dollars for things other than rent. That was just the formula we used to determine the grant amount. So monthly rent times 4.5, capped at $30,000. You can use those dollars for payroll, rent, utilities, incremental COVID-19 expenses. So that if that's PPE and sneeze guards and plexiglass and things like that. It's broader than what the PPP allowed you to use it for, but there are similarities there.
Folks, it's Mitch. I'm back. I apologize. My internet keeps kicking me out. If it happens again, I'll join by phone. Kevin, thanks for taking over.
Sure.
So let's see. I'm going to try screen sharing one more time and hope this works, because I want us to take a look at the website.
What is the website? I can't seem to get on.
Hang on. Okay. And can everybody see that?
What is the website?
It is lakecountyi.gov/4444/lake-county-forward. And it should be showing on the screen right now.
I just pasted the link in the chat window. So you can also just Google Lake County Forward and it'll be the top option.
Kevin, can we see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So hopefully you're looking at this and the URL address is listed right up on top here. What you're going to see is this splash page, this landing page. It says Lake County Forward. And there are the terms and conditions to the grant, and all the legal language is listed here. There is a W-9 form. That's one of the requirements for submission of this grant. If you've already got a completed signed W-9 form, you can use that. If you don't, you can click this link and gain access to it. I'm going to skip down where it says questions here. There is a pretty comprehensive list of frequently asked questions that I would really urge you to take a look at, because a lot of the questions that you have could very well be answered by that, but this webinar is also intended to do that. We have three ways of allowing you to communicate with us and others about this grant program. There's this phone number listed here, which goes right to my Small Business Development Center. And we have advisors who work with you about questions that you have. We've got an email address there that does the same thing. And then there are these question forms. And these question forms go directly to the grant application processor. So there's an organization that is processing these applications. And so if you have specific questions about the application, sometimes it's best to start with this question form because they oftentimes can answer it. Then you're going to see the webinars. We had one on the 8th of July. Here we are today on July 14th, and we'll have one on July 20th, which is the day that the grant application ends. So I'm going to click on the English version of the application and just run through this real quickly. The eligibility requirements that we talked about are all listed on the left here. I'm not going to read them off to you unless any of you want to talk more about that. You can kind of read those on your own. And then on the right is the application itself. And as has been said, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to answer questions about whether or not your business is in Lake County, whether or not you experienced a COVID-related loss, your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, etc. We'll ask about your race, ethnicity, and gender. And as I think Kevin said, or perhaps you just don't know, but I'll say it now. We want to make sure that people who have businesses that are minority owned or women owned have access to this as well. So we ask those questions. You don't have to be certified as a woman owned or minority owned. It's just your identification in this grant application is sufficient. And there's portions where we're asking about your business name, your doing business as name if you have one. So if you're a sole proprietor and you've registered with the Lake County Clerk, you should have a DBA or a doing business as name.
Mitch, could I interrupt you real quick and just just a quick reminder, if you're on the phone, it'd be helpful if go ahead and mute for now, and then that'll make it easier for everybody to hear. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, sounds like that background noise is gone. You're gonna list your EIN, your employee identification number or employer identification number, or your TIN, which I think is more for foreign entities. Most people have an EIN, so if you have questions about that, ask us, but that's usually what people use. And then we've got your business address information, etc., your zip code. You're going to identify what industry you're in, and there's a drop down here. And just get as close as you can. You're not going to be ineligible if you choose the wrong one. It's a limited list, and just choose the one that best reflects your business. There's a drop down for number of years in business, right? And obviously, if it's after February 15th, 2020, we already know that you're ineligible. So hopefully you won't be selecting that one, and you'll select from the other options that are there. Annual revenue, we know it has to be under 2.5 million in order to be eligible for this program. So select the appropriate one there. And then you're going to indicate the impact that COVID has had on you by either saying you had to close, you had to reduce service, or you stayed in business, but your revenue, decreased significantly. So you're going to make one of those choices. And then you're going to indicate the amount of your monthly rent or mortgage payment. It's going to go there. What kind of additional COVID-19 assistance you may have received, either through the Paycheck Protection Program, the EIDL loan, or other grant or loan programs. And so one of the things that may have got glossed over because of the technical problems I had is that you certainly are eligible if you have received other funding, PPP or EIDL, but preference will be given to those who have not received any yet. And so that's just something to realize. There's a question about whether or not you have received a business interruption grant. That's the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity has provided some money to those businesses that have been affected by civil unrest and have suffered as a result of that. And then there's the grant agreement itself. You can take a look at by clicking there, and obviously you have to agree to the terms and conditions of that. And then you click a box saying everything I told you is true. And then after that, we have a list of the required documentation, which includes 2019 tax returns or year-end financial statements if you don't have your tax returns submitted yet. At least 2 business bank statements from 2020 that show a drop in revenue. Valid business license. That one, don't get too hung up on that. Most of the county doesn't require one, but if you are in a municipality that does require you to have a business license, you'll have to show that. And the best way to find out is to go to the village hall and ask, you know, is this municipality required, businesses in this municipality required to have a business license. That's not a big showstopper. Most folks don't even have a need for that. And then a valid identification card like a driver's license and a completed W-9 form, which there's a link there. If you don't have a W-9 form, there's a link to complete one. And then lastly, in a statement that lists your monthly mortgage or rent. Those are the requirements there. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can go back and take a look at our chat box and begin answering questions. So let's see, Kevin, have you answered any of these yet, or should I just start reading them off?
No, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, it says on the topic of 2.5 million gross revenue, prior to the pandemic, we were above 2.5 million. After March 2020, we are surely below 2.5 million. Do we qualify for this? We meet all the other qualifications. And so, yes, if you're, correct me if I'm wrong here, Kevin, but if revenue has been reduced to below 2.5 million, they qualify. Is that?
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We might need to put an asterisk in that answer and look into that one. I think that came from Peter. I understand the situation there. I think typically we were validating income from the most recent tax return. So I think we posted the email address if others are in this situation. We'll look into that answer, and if you can reach out to us, we'll get you that detail.
So the second question is it required that the business owner is an individual? The application form is asking for the first and last name of the applicant. How about a small corporation owned by a corporation? Pretty sure it has to be an individual. Yeah, we have to have a person to get back to and to tie to that business.
Mitch, there were a couple questions, I think, since you maybe got kicked out that maybe aren't in your chat stream.
Okay.
So someone asked about how are we being updated on the status of the application, somebody who'd already applied. So if you've already applied, the application window is open until 11:59 p.m. Next Monday, July 20th. At the point that the application closes, that's when the validation process will start. So nobody will hear anything until the application window closes and the validation process starts. I think we're going to need at least a week or so. We've seen over 1,000 applications so far. So the intent is that we get notification and checks out, and they will be paper checks mid-August. So there is going to be a quiet period in here where you're not going to hear from us.
Okay. Are there others, Kevin? Or is that it?
There was a question about how do we document significant negative business impact from COVID-19. So that's also a question around, or where we're asking of where the bank statements, or if there's a year-over-year financial statement that you can show, hey, last year revenue was here, or income was here, and this year it's here. That will help. If you're a retailer, restaurant, somebody that was shut down, that impact's got to be pretty obvious. But that's why we're asking for those details. So that's where maybe the year-over-year bank statements would be helpful.
There's a question from Anna. Document requested 2 bank statements include the business address and name. Our incorporated address is different than our office location where we pay our rent. How do I notate this? So I would suggest, if it's not reflected on any of the documentation that you've been asked to upload to the site, I think probably the best way to handle that would be to create another document that explains that and upload it to the site. If it's not listed on any of the documentation, normally you'd have to make this notation and upload that with all the other required business documentation. I don't know a better way.
And that's where a copy of your rent invoice should show that, or actually upload a copy of the lease, which would not only show what the lease amount is, but then obviously the address, and that'll help clarify that. Having the incorporation address and the place of business, or where your service or product is delivered, that's been a common scenario through here. So, but that's where, if you upload a copy of the lease, that'd be great.
The next question comes from Munjal. Our business is registered using the home address. How do I provide mortgage or rent documents for the business? Also, I need to know, as we opened business in 2019 only and haven't made any business as COVID-19 situation started, how can I provide the loss statement for the business? So you're still going to have some sort of, you can have bank statements, right, that reflect what revenue you've made. And even if you if you don't have tax returns, you still can have your accountants generate P&L statements that will reflect that. So that's what I would say there. Regarding the business address, it's your home address, and so the mortgage or rent that you pay, you're only going to get a percentage of that applied to your business. And I think you need to work with your accountant to figure out what that percentage is. Kevin, do you have any other insights into that one?
I don't.
That one's a little tricky, but yes, as a home-based business, it's not like, you can apply your entire mortgage payment to this, because you only get a percent of that. And I think you need to talk with your accountant to figure out what percent that is. The next question comes from Mirella. Can a sole proprietorship apply? And the answer is yes, you can. I'm a licensed home daycare, stayed open for emergency care, but my income was greatly impacted. Sole proprietors can apply. Okay, someone is not muted. Let's see. The request is for the 2020 meeting or mortgage payment, but the directions to the left state 2019 mortgage payments. That
was a good catch. I saw that and just validated. You are correct. So thank you, Linda, for that. We'll get that fixed. Whichever shows what your current payment is. So if you had an increase in 2020 from 2019, let's reflect what you're currently paying.
Dave asks, I clicked send me a copy of my responses, but I've not received anything since the submittal. Well, my suggestion is go to that question form that we showed on the splash page, the front page of the grant website, the application website, and ask them what's going on, because you should have automatically received a copy of your responses if you clicked that. So that's what you need to do there, is complete that question form. Have submitted.
So Mitch is right. If you want those, just a second, Mitch. So
Yep.
Dave, if you want those answers, so Mitch is right. If you go to that form, we can get you the answers. But I do see your name in here of the submittal. So your application was received.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions in here about problems with getting either getting access or getting responses in return from the application website. And the best way to address that is to complete that question form. They have been very good about getting back to folks within 4 hours of the submittal of questions. So anything related to the working of the application site itself has to go to the question form. Dave says there are several questions before the one that Mitch just read. I think these are the ones that Kevin already addressed. I didn't see
I think we're good.
Kevin addressed them, so I think we're good there. Kathy says, I already submitted my request, but I don't believe the required forms accurately show the impact of my woman-owned business, at least 50%. Can I send more documentation to help make that clear? If so, where do I send it? I don't believe the required forms accurately show the impact on my woman-owned business. So I think the place is the same place where you uploaded the required financial documentation. I would, if you have additional documentation that helps to make the case for your impact, I would upload it there. And I probably would also use that question form to say, hey, just wanted to let you know I did this. Please make note of these additional forms that I uploaded. Linda asks.
And as long as your submittal shows shows some impact, the selection process won't necessarily say, oh, this person's had a greater or this business has been affected more than this business, so let's put them in front. It's not how the selection process will work. So it's more of a random selection of those eligible. So Kathy, I don't know that you need to worry about that. If you feel that it wasn't documented at all, then that's a different story. Then we do want to see that. But if you just feel like other documentation would tell a stronger story, I'm not sure that you need to worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
If you got the PPP, which our company did, then the bank statements don't really accurately reflect. I mean, it did help with that, but it almost looks not too far off, you know, from before. Even
Okay,
though we're doing less than half the business.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. We've heard that similar scenario also with folks who are like the statements of when the PPP came in almost makes it like, hey, you had a great month. So maybe that's where if year-over-year statements can show a different month, maybe something like that. But given that scenario, I think maybe some additional documentation might make sense. If you can reach out to us outside the scope of this call if you want. It's not going to be easy to marry up additional documentation with what you've already submitted. The system would actually say, could you just go ahead and resubmit? As many have, which then the system will just grab the most recent one.
Okay.
I hate to ask you to do that, but at least the application process, hopefully you found it to be pretty light, so that wouldn't be hopefully too hard for you to do.
That's doable. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
That's a really good point that I want to emphasize, that what Kevin just brought up is that if for any reason you believe your application was incomplete or there's something that you need to add, the best thing you can do is completely resubmit. There are no modifications once you've hit submit, the submit button. So you have to resubmit an entire application. And as Kevin said, they just take the latest one on file and they disregard the others. Okay. So very important point to note. Linda asks, instructions state that only the documents with an asterisk are required. Are the other documents to be shared once we are contacted by someone from the organization? Is there a portal that is secure that we can send our bank statements. So first off, yeah, that's something that we need to correct. Even the documents that aren't asterisked are important, are required. So they all need to be uploaded, and the portal itself, I believe is secure, and you should be able to upload your statements there. I bet, Kevin, do you know anything about the security of that? It seems.
I wouldn't be able to speak to that effectively, but that would be a good question to put in that question box on the site.
Yeah.
It's totally reasonable for you to have those security questions. I'm going to need to rely on those folks to be able to field them. That's outside my skill set.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Munjal asks, we're a small IT company with 3 partners. Does it have to be a specific person who needs to apply for the grant? No, just, somebody has to be the authorized person from your organization to make this request. Judy asks, missed the date about when you can expect to hear from application process and when checks will be mailed. So the application closes on the 20th of July. After that, additional processing will happen. And by mid-August, people will be informed about whether or not they're getting the grant, and checks will, physical paper checks will ultimately be mailed to those who are going to be grant recipients. Dave says, I submitted an application already. If based on this discussion, there's additional information we might want to submit, how do we do that effectively? The answer is completely resubmit the application. Unfortunately, that's the reality. But as Kevin said, it's a pretty straightforward process, so hopefully that won't be a big deal. Frank asks, we're a very small business and only use our personal bank account. Do we still use those statements? And the answer is going to be yes. If that's what you have, that's what you have to use. I always urge people to have a separate bank account for your commercial dealings. So that's the best scenario. But if what you have is a personal bank account, yes, that's what you would use. Linda asked, COVID-19 delayed time when rental properties could be rented. Can I submit an explanation page quantifying what that delay costs us? And I think the answer is yes. But again, I think you probably want to use that question form to let them know that you have uploaded something additional. Can we show the link to the site again? Kevin, would you mind typing that in?
I'll do that, and you can keep going, Mitch.
Is the portal secure for the confidential information we are sending? I think Kevin already addressed that. I mean, yeah, you need to, in order to get confirmation on that and for you to feel that you have a solid answer, you need to ask that in the question box. So that's the best approach there.
If it helps, so the organization that we have contracted with to do this back end processing is the same organization that is doing the program for the state of Illinois, for Cook County and the city of Chicago. But do the due diligence that you need in order to feel comfortable.
Peter asks, her question relates to how do we reconnect to the Smartsheet that we drop files to? That is not clear. I'm not sure I understand what the question is here, Peter. If you care to unmute and clarify.
I think you answered that by instructing us to put in another application.
Okay.
If we have additional information, the idea was, could we reconnect to the sheet? But I believe we can't.
Okay. Next question is, sorry if this has already been asked, but I'm a sole proprietor that runs my business out of 2 locations. Should I create a document that shows combined rent for both locations? Well, I don't know about a combined document, but you need to demonstrate the rent for both locations. And so if you have individual statements that reflect, mortgage or lease payment for each location, I would say upload those. And I don't know, Kevin, is there a benefit to combining them into one document? I don't know that there is.
You don't necessarily need to combine them, but know that the evaluation will be combined. So multi-location businesses will be treated as one entity, not separate. You can't apply separately for each location. Not sure if that exactly answers the question. But from a dollar amount in that field, make that a combined dollar amount. And then with the uploads, you can make it explicit, showing that either invoices or leases for the multiple locations.
So the next question comes from Julie. I see how the initial formula of rent times 4.5 works and the maximum of $30,000, but how many months rent can we expect to receive? And are the checks sent 1 month at a time, or is it a lump sum? Pretty sure it's going to be a lump sum. And how many months can you expect to receive? Well, I guess, up to $30,000 worth, which is really, it's up to you how many months that covers. I don't know how else to explain that. Up to $30,000, which could cover, for some people, 6 months rent, and for others, it might cover 2 months rent.
I guess my question is more about, are we looking at the past months or the future months? Are we just trying to cover what people have lost, or moving forward? So in other words, I would want to apply for the whole $30,000 rather than just saying I've lost this income over the last 3 months.
Yeah, so I think though that the formula is calculated based upon rent, your rent or mortgage payment in the past times 4.5, and obviously you're going to apply the proceeds to that to future rent or mortgage. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I think so. It's not based on March, April, May loss, but instead it's to cover the future rent payments.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not really based on loss as much as what it's going to cost you to keep your doors open based on the cost of rent or lease.
Okay.
Kevin,
Thank you.
And some of that comes from, so that's language actually in the CARES Act. So in the federal act that drove this, that technically it can't be used to make up for lost revenue, but it can be used for expenses. So that can either be, looking back rent, or looking, forward. It can be, you can cover the last couple of months rent or the future ones. That's fine. Doesn't matter. This money does need to be spent by December 31st. So it can go ahead and look forward, and you can use it for more than just rent. So the formula that we created was just about rent because we had to come up with something. But it can be used for payroll, rent, utilities, working capital, essentially.
Thank you.
The next question is, sorry, I missed the Q&A due to tech issue. Could you please advise again if the owner of the small business must be individuals? We need a name for sure. If you're asking whether or not like an umbrella LLC could be listed, the answer to that is yes, but we need the name of an individual.
At least essentially an officer of the corporation. So one of the things that you'd be attesting to in the submittal is that you, the person clicking submit, are an authorized individual of the organization, and you've got the authority to do that. So in the individual name, even if it's an umbrella company, it's got to be an officer of the company. Does that make sense? And if it still doesn't, we've posted the email to the Small Business Development Center. We can post that again to shoot us that email and we can figure out the specific scenario.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do our best to answer the questions here, but we've got a large group of people and sometimes it's challenging. So feel free to use that email address or that phone number to do follow-ups. Do the proceeds received from the PPP loan get included in revenue? The answer to that is yes. Also, what if the owner deposited personal funds in the business? I think that's also considered to be revenue if you deposited it into the business. I don't know how they would separate that out, but it is revenue. And my sense is that that will be reflected as such. But that might be, for instance, where you want to ask that question in the question box. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, one of the things that we're going to use also to substantiate that you're under $2.5 million in revenue would be your 2019 tax return. I realize not everybody's filed 2019 yet. I think it's dates tomorrow. But obviously there are extensions into the fall. But so what can you show? 2018, if 2018 revenue is way below the $2.5 million threshold, I think we can probably, and show us some financial statements or something from this year so we can see that, okay, you're probably way under. If 2018 was close, then we're gonna have to work something out. What I mean by that is we're gonna need to see something that we can see that you're under $2.5 million in revenue.
Linda asks, will this be a grant or a loan? It's a grant. And so the second part of the question doesn't matter. What are the terms if it's a loan? So it's definitely a grant. To clarify Julie's question, the grant is the lesser of rent times 4.5 or $30,000. That's correct. Once checks have been distributed, will there be any follow-up to show that the money was used for rent, similar to PPP or payroll? Kevin, can you field that one?
Yeah, so one of the things that you'd be attesting to, so there's an agreement on that submittal form, and you're saying that you will use these proceeds for these eligible expenses, and it lists there kind of what I've said a couple times, right? Rent, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. The CARES Act, Lake County is going to get audited on how they used the $122 million. That's a gimme. There is the hope, and we're waiting for federal guidance. So the reality is that we just haven't seen all the rules yet, that the attestation of here's what we're going to use them for is enough. But the county is asking, hey, keep track of that because we might need to come back and ask for it after the fact to say, asking you, what did you spend it on? And what the federal government is really concerned about is what they'd call double dipping. So that if you're saying, hey, I used my PPP loan for July payroll or August payroll, and then from this program, you're also saying, oh, I used that for August payroll. That's what the federal government is concerned about, is claiming the same expense in two different programs. So, which would also be if you've applied for the state big grant, business interruption grant, same thing. These are all dollars that come out of the CARES Act. And so that's just the federal government is concerned about that double dipping. So the county is going to ask that you keep those expenses discrete from each other and be able to substantiate it if asked.
Thanks, Kevin. The last question I see listed here is from Julie, and it says, can you tell us the overall amount available? In other words, if over 1,000 people have applied, what percentage will likely receive? Kevin, let's have you answer that one again.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Julie. I should have covered that up front. So the initial allocation, so far we've been allocated $10 million for this initial wave. We fully expect that to be oversubscribed. In fact, I'm reasonably confident that the 1,000 or so applications that we have so far are well in excess of that $10 million. We have earmarked a second wave of $10 million that is potentially available. But that's where we need to see the data from this first round. What's the unmet need? What should the shape of that second wave be? And how to do that. So that second wave is in pencil. It's not in pen, but that's sort of the expectation. So there's potentially another 10 million there. Whether the program or that second wave is shaped exactly the same is still to be determined.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. So that's the last question I see in the chat box. If anybody has a question they'd like to, unmute and verbally ask, we could certainly entertain that now. I see people are starting to drop off, so I think we've answered a lot of the
It's a good sign.
Yeah. Any other additional questions before we close today? Well, all right, folks.
I guess
Go ahead,
sorry.
Julie. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just did some quick math on the 10 million divided by 30,000. So it looks like maybe about 300 people. Are we assuming that most people are going to apply for the full 30,000? And could I kind of in my mind assume that about a third of the people who apply are going to get accepted into that first wave?
A lot of the grant amounts are actually are well below that 30,000.
Okay.
So, and I haven't done the actual math. This is me literally scrolling through a spreadsheet. So big grain of salt there. But a lot of those grant amounts are well below the $30,000 cap. So maybe 500 businesses in that first wave. And I pulled that number out of, it's been kind of a working number, but there isn't science behind that 500 number. I'm guessing that's probably about it though.
Do you think we'll need to reapply for that second wave, or if we apply for this first wave, that would carry over to the second wave?
It is my hope that we can take the second wave from the existing applicants so that you wouldn't have to do it again. That's easier for you, and frankly, it's easier for us too, that we can take it from the vetted, validated applications. That's where if there's a change in the program, should nonprofits be eligible is a question that has come up, things like that, what we'd have to figure out then what that process looks like. I'm going to hope to not make you fill out the application again.
Okay. Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where
can we go to if we need help?
Yes, so you can go to either the email address or the phone number that's listed on the website if you have questions, and you can talk to a person. You can also post questions to the question form that's listed on the website. Those questions go directly to the grant processor, the application processor. So you have many options there. So just visit the website and you'll see all the email addresses and the phone numbers are very clearly there. There's one other question that we should answer. Can we get a copy of this Zoom call? Yes, it'll be posted on the website. This webinar will be recorded, posted on the Lake County Forward website. And then somebody else says, we can always ask questions to Illinois SBDC at clcillinois.edu. That's the email address I mentioned earlier, and you absolutely can. And Kevin just reposted the phone number there.
Yeah, I think Randy's got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I know you had said that you're not going to start looking at all the applications until after the July 20th deadline is passed. How are you going to determine the order? I mean, is it going to be first come, first served, whoever got their application in first, or will it be, are you going to look at like maybe the smaller amounts first to try and serve more people? Is there like a methodology that you guys are employing for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So once the applications will be vetted for eligibility, things like, is it really in Lake County? You know, is it under 2.5 million? So once that, and then we'll run a randomizer algorithm across those. So when the application came in, day 1 or day 12, truly doesn't matter. Any other questions?
Yeah, there are a couple more that got posted here, Kevin.
Oh, great.
Andrew asks, expected timing for wave 2. Do we know?
You know what? We really don't know. If I gave you an answer, I'd be making it up. So you know, maybe late August, but you saw me just make that up. So huge grain of salt with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's we're working our way through this, folks, and we're trying to move as quickly as we can and, you know, help businesses as quickly as we can, but there are some things that we're deciding as we're moving, kind of. One last question here. Is the question box a form or chat, or does the person email us back? It's a form, it's not a chat, and you'll get an email or a phone call back. Anything else, folks? All right, it's 6 minutes to 11. And so we spent about an hour together. We hope we answered questions as completely as possible. I see a lot of thank yous in here, so that's good. We appreciate your time and attention today, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future about how things are going and, you know, whether or not you received the grant. We hope many of you do. Obviously, as Kevin said, that's a random draw, but we're glad that you're here, and feel free to reach out with additional questions, and we'll do our best to help you out. All right, folks. Kevin,
And stay tuned to the Small Business Development Center at CLC, which Mitch runs, for some additional programming. There's some really good stuff coming down the pipe for small businesses.
Yes, we are working on training and advising programs to not only help our small businesses get through COVID-19, but even kind of longer term growth strategies and things like that. So more to come on that. Thanks for bringing that up, Kevin. All right.
And
folks.
I just want to see, I didn't see this earlier, and so maybe the question's been answered, but Calvin, it looks like you might have raised your hand electronically a while ago. Sorry that I'm only seeing that now. But if your question did not get answered, feel free to fire away now. Okay, I think we're good.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Hope to talk to you at some point in the future. Take care. Bye.
Thank you all.